Welcome to Quilting on the Side, the podcast where we uncover the secrets to turning your passion for quilting into a profitable side hustle.
I'm Tori from the Quilt Patch by Tori.
And I'm Andi from True Blue Quilts. And together, we're your co-hosts on this exciting journey of creativity, entrepreneurship, and all things quilting.
We're here to help you navigate the world of quilt pattern design, course creation, digital marketing, and running an online quilt business. We've been through the ups and downs ourselves, so we know what it takes to make money from your favorite hobby.
That's right, Tori. We're going to share our experiences on how we've grown our businesses while balancing family with other paying work responsibilities. It's not always easy, but it's definitely possible. Welcome to our latest episode of Quilting on the Side podcast. We have a special feature today because Jen and Masey are not quilters. They did not build a quilt singularly focused business, and we're so excited to have them here. Masey, why don't you tell us about the Loose Ends project and how it got started?
I would love to. Thanks. So Loose Ends is a nonprofit. Our mission is to ease grief, create community, and inspire generosity by matching volunteer textile finishers with projects people have left undone due to either death or disability. And the textile projects are often quilts, but they can also be knitted, crocheted projects, needlepoint, cross stitch, rugs, anything that is basically anything that's made with string of some kind. So Jen and I have known each other for about 30 years or so, and we were hanging out on the West Coast about 2.5 years ago with a mutual friend who had recently lost her mom, and we were helping this friend go through her mom's crafting supplies, pulling things out, organizing them, figuring out what our friend should keep, what should get donated away. And in the process, we discovered that there were these 2 blankets that our friend Patty's mom had been making for her brothers. And Jen and I were each about to raise our hand and take a crochet blanket. Neither of us was super psyched about doing that. We would have done it. We would have done it for our friend, but crochet isn't our first craft. We love crochet. We love crocheters, but it's not our first craft. So we had been talking about for a while. We had been talking about the concept of loose ends, and wondering what it would be like to, both Jen and I had in the past finished projects for people who had lost loved ones. And so we had been talking about what it might look like to launch something like Loose Ends, wondering when was the best time for it, and just curious if this is something strangers would be interested in doing for each other. Because, as quilters, I almost think that quilters, more than any other craft, quilters finish each other's stuff often, like it's a thing. Yeah. So that feels really good to do it, right? There's something that happens when you're able to do something for a friend who's experienced a loss. There's not a whole lot that people can do besides listen, usually cook food and be there, but to be able to do this kind of tangible thing for a loved one was a special feeling. And so Jen and I were talking about, well, what would it be like if we could get strangers to kind of pop in and do this for each other? And so we convinced our friend Patty in that moment to let us use her 2 blankets as our pilot project. She very willingly said yes, and that was it. We were off to the races with our first 2 projects.
Yeah.
That's the beginning.
Yeah, and I'm really happy we didn't finish those blankets on our own.
Yeah.
Not that I don't love Patty. I would have definitely done it for her. And in fact, I think Masey jumped in before I was like, well, yeah, sure. Masey's like, no.
Jack, can I talk to you in the other room for a second about something?
I'm not really sure what this is. Is this acrylic? I don't know.
Yeah, loose ends,
So,
it seemed to start so humbly. And then now, can you give us a bit of a snapshot of what loose ends looks like now?
Sure. So in the first month, we went on the internet and joined groups and asked them to help us, and we found about 100 people who were like, "Yeah, I could do this." And we started Facebook group, and Macy put together, being a graphic designer for nonprofits, had knew the types of things we needed. So we have a great website with logos and just all the different things that people would ask for. But then we got some press, and we grew in numbers, and I think it was the Washington Post press that we got that kind of made things blow up. Because today, a little over 2 years later, we have over 28,000 finishers in almost 70 countries. We've got projects in 13 countries, and we have finished or have in process at least 3,000 projects, which is crazy. We're going into our second year as a nonprofit, which is scary and fun at the same time. And it kind of just says, people knew it needed to be there, you know? And in other countries that we're in, we have people who have translated our flyers into different languages. And yeah, it's been, if anything has given me hope in the last couple of years, it's the fact that whenever we tell people about this, they get excited about it, but they also ask how they can help. And it's funny because the crafters all get it. They're like, yeah, this makes sense. Of course people do this. The non-crafters are like, at some point, we're like, I think people are going to die with projects for a really long time. And I think crafters are going to want this help. So it's been kind of amazing how this all has happened. So I don't know. It's pretty spectacular.
Those are some amazing numbers. And like you said, it just is a wonderful testament to people that are willing to help everybody. That's wonderful. Now, I want to get just a few of the nitty-gritty pieces cleared up. Masey, there's a website that has all the information, but what resources do you provide people in terms of making that connection, or all the people that want to help? What do you tell them to do first?
yeah. So, anyone who's interested in becoming a volunteer finisher can sign up at looseends.org. We actually have a fancy app that is still in development where people can create a profile, tell us the kinds of crafting that they'd like to do, self-grade them, self-grade their skill level for each craft. So if you're a beginner at crochet, but you're an expert quilter, there's information you can put in on all of those details that we need to know. It'll ask things like, is there cigarette smoke in your house? Do you have cats or dogs in your house? Are you a righty or a lefty? Things that we need to know in order to make a good match. So that is the first thing if someone's interested in becoming a finisher. It's pretty quick to set that up.
And none of those things will disqualify you.
No, yeah, totally. We just want to make sure that if, for instance, we're matching somebody who has a pet allergy, that the project is going to a home where there are no pets. It's just so that we can make sure the variables all line up well. So if somebody has a project that they'd like to submit, they go to the same place, looseends.org, different button, submit a project. We'll ask for pictures. We need to see what it is. We'll ask some details about the original crafter. We will I ask where you live, and we don't share any of that information, but we use that to make the match happen locally. So when we do the matching, the first thing we look at is geography so that we can try to match people who live as close to each other as possible. This really cuts down on a lot of anxiety about putting a project into the mail, which can be stressful. And it also creates this beautiful kind of community. It often people will meet up in person and become friends, meet to exchange the project. We've had people tell us that they've continued to get together afterwards. So it's really nice to know that somebody from your community cares about you so much, and they don't even know you. They care enough to take all of this time to help. So what else?
That part is the part that's kind of incredible about what we do, is that you've got people that are really close to each other that don't even know each other, that are now connected by this craft, this project, and it's kind of spectacular. And we've also had people who know each other. Like, we've met some people who's like, Janice signed up? Oh, yeah. It's like, I didn't think to ask her. All right. I mean, that's kind of spectacular too, because it just speaks to the fact that we don't always know the people around us, and or how giving and kind they are. And we're giving people an opportunity to do that, which is great.
Yeah. One thing to keep in mind is that there's about a 1 to 12 project to finisher ratio. So for every project that's submitted, there are 12 finishers who are waiting for a project. So when we match people who live near each other, like Jen said, we have this sometimes serendipitous moments where people are like, oh my gosh, it's you. But I think I lost my train of thought.
Well, that ties into a question I was going to ask about the advice you would give to all of us in the crafting community about, what have you learned over the years about people getting ready for that stage of, I need to wind down and manage this huge room of supplies and unfinished projects?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah,
and one
great question.
So one of the things that we accept any project that a person has started, had the intent of starting for somebody else, and has passed away or has lost the ability. So a lot of people who've lost their eyesight, dementia, lots of ways you can lose your ability to do craft. We don't take projects that people don't want to do. I actually just had one of those today. This lady is like, I started a knitting project and it was cables and I just can't do it. And I was like, Etsy? There's lots of places who can do this. And we actually, this should have taken one email and it took like 5. And I was like, yeah, we don't do that. But as you're thinking about life going, like passing on, I don't know if you can really see in my dark room here, there's lots of yarn in all of those black things. And there's even some on the ground I'm kind of embarrassed about. And there are at least, I'm going to say 10 to 15 projects that are started. If I was Masey, there's a lovely book that she has, that when she starts a project, she writes down what everything is, who it's going to go to. And, I do get texts. She's a little bit more of a catastrophizer than I am, but I get texts saying, Jen, I'm getting on the plane. The project I have with me is going to go down with me. That was for Phil. He's next to me. He's going to be dead too. How about the cashmere? Take a sweater, make a sweater out of that for Satchel, make one for Owen. And she's got a plan. If I die tomorrow, I don't know what's going to happen. So don't be like me. If you are a crafter and you have all this stuff, make a plan for it. Leave a little note in each little box. And if there's something that you're like, you know, I started this, but I hate it and I don't really want to give it to anybody, throw it out. I've said this before, Macy's heard me say it, but there is a bikini top that I started to crochet. Not really my style anymore. I have a snarky little girl who would be like, you know, Mom always wanted to be buried in this. And that will happen if I don't get rid of it beforehand. Get rid of your stuff. There are lots of places that will take stuff that it's not your thing. We don't take it because I don't have enough room for anybody else's stash. I've got enough stash. But on our donations page, if you go to the donations page where we take monetary donations, if you scroll down, in each state we have places that will take your stash and things that you don't want, and even in a couple of countries. But I firmly believe that anybody who's invested a lot of money and time and passion into crafts should think about having a craft executor, like somebody who's gonna think about what to do with those things, somebody you can leave some notes for that's gonna know what's going on. And, you know, in my case, get rid of all of the acrylic that I don't know why I have. It should just be craft projects, and then, you know, lovingly give the cashmere that I've got stowed away for a special occasion to probably Masey or somebody else who wants it, you know? Make a plan.
One other thing too is we are encouraging people who don't have crafters in their close circles who would normally like do these things for them posthumously, to write down looseends.org and put it in your crafting bag, because we'll match. I mean, it's easy for us to get projects finished as long as people know that we exist. So anyone who has, you know, a knitting bag or a crafting room or boxes or whatever, just make sure we're in there so that, you know, when the time comes, people can find us.
Yeah.
So you mentioned having 28,000 finishers and an app, and I was curious. So this might have already answered it, this question, but how do you organize all of that on the back end? Are you in there a lot, or is it kind of automated? What's going on with that?
Yeah. So when we started this, we were in Google Sheets, and that worked fine when there were 500 finishers, and we figured out that zip codes could be truncated to figure out where people were in space. It was a ham-fisted way to do it, but it worked. But as we progressed, that spreadsheet just started getting bigger and bigger and slower. We had one of our board members would go in every night and check things and make sure it was formatted correctly so that we could organize it. My next door neighbor is a web app designer, among other things, but he's a coder. And apparently at Christmas, he was like, this is not going to work for you for very long. And I was like, it's fine.
It's great.
Work. It's great. And he went to bed. He went to bed and said to his wife, I'm not doing anything for Jen. And she was like, okay. And then the next day he was like, all right, so I thought about it, and this is how it can be organized, and these are the options. And he just started talking a lot of tech stuff, which I come from a tech background, but I've always been the talker to get people to talk to each other so they could explain something better. I know enough to be dangerous. So Mark built this thing for us, and by the time we were ready to use it, we had a spreadsheet with 17,000 rows in it. And it was, anytime we had to find any information on it, it was like playing with molasses. It was hard. But now we have this lovely app that's just on the web, so nobody has to download an app or do anything like that. But what happens is we have all of our finishers information in there. It's encrypted. The only people who have access to it are our tech people who are fixing the app, and Masey, Angelica, and I. Angelica's our part-time helper. And what we can do is we can take an address, put it into our app, and it will pop up all the finishers that are around. So it's pretty spectacular that we can do this. And then we can hone it down to the craft. So if we want to see all the people who will do applique quilts, we can hone it down to that, and it'll pop up people who are experts, intermediate, or beginners at that. And I don't think we could really do this without that app right now. Like, it wouldn't work. And we have a group of technologists who, it's an all-women team that I work with once a week. We talk, and we're trying to get our projects in there, because what happens is once we find the people, get the information, we start working on emails. So I'll send out an email saying, hey, you want to be a finisher? Here are our terms, sign this agreement. And they'll say, great. And then I'll introduce them to our project owner, and then the project owner, and they will connect and go get the project. And they're on their way. We push them out to the universe. And then we check in on them every couple of weeks, just weeks or months, to make sure that there's good communication happening. Sometimes our finishers are introverts, and they get the project and they just work away, and they don't think to update the project owner, and that's kind of scary. Sometimes the project owner's like, all right, I'll see you in 6 months. And the finisher has questions. So we try to encourage communication. All of this is in email. Our hope and what we're aiming towards with the tech is getting our projects in the web app, so that all the interactions are happening within the web app, so that we can see the emails that got sent. So if I decide to maybe go on vacation, Masey could look in and keep track of the things that were going on in my projects, and I could do the same for her. And it would be easier. So that's our goal. That's what we're doing. That technology has not cost us anything yet. The cost of it is all the web space, and the applications that we use to get things organized, so that the program can be built. So there is a cost to it, but being a nonprofit's a little bit different than being in a different business. Nonprofits have a lot of access to a lot of free stuff. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. Some of it comes with some of it comes with some, okay, you can have this for a couple months, but then it's going to cost you in the long run. So, I mean, we deal with a lot of business problems that other people deal with as well, trying to make sure that we're minimizing our overhead and making sure that we're on track to achieve and grow our business.
So I was curious, how did you find sponsors for your nonprofit?
Go
ahead, Masey.
I was going to say, early on, before we were even a 501c3, Joanne came to us and asked for a meeting, and we started just talking to those guys about our goals and what we were doing. And they basically, from an early point, just said, what can we do to help? They just wanted to be part of it. And so almost immediately they started to offer materials for projects that were left behind without enough to finish them, which is sometimes the case. Most of the time there's enough yarn, there's enough fabric, but actually quilts are one of the types of projects that often there will be a quilt top left. There's no backing yet. There's no batting yet. So that is a common kind of project for Joanne to pop in and help with. So early on, they helped with things like that. And then eventually we were able to start, once we were an actual nonprofit and recognized, then we were able to partner with them for actual funding. And at this point, they give us the opportunity to have rounding up at the register for the entire month of February, which is coming up, in all of their stores. So they do these kinds of charitable partnerships with all kinds of nonprofits, and we have the month of February this next year, 2025.
Yeah.
So it's kind
That's
of
going
an
to be great for getting
exciting
your name
deal.
out there.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's been really great. And it's funny, like in the quilting community, Grace Quilts came to us early on and put us in their spring fling. We had a woman with Hobbs fabric who her name is Stephanie, just spent literally 2 hours with me just chatting about what kind of quilt projects we should take, what we shouldn't take, and not knowing a lot about quilting. You know, I'm a knitter, and first thing I learned is you don't want to touch anybody's quilt. The second, which is not a knitting thing, because if I see somebody on the street with knitting, I'm gonna be like, "Oh, can I touch it?" And they're like, "Yeah, you gotta feel how soft this is."
Right.
As
Or
not
or
the,
any or someone wearing something, right? Like
yeah.
we always touching. Yeah, oh, can I put
Oh,
my hands on your sweater?
did
Or
you make that? Let me
what's
try
this
it.
made of? Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the first thing we learned. Don't do that with quilts. The second thing we learned is that a quilt top is one whole thing, but then there's the batting and the backing and the binding, and that's a whole nother thing. So that could be another group of people. Also, long armors did not really appreciate the fact that we were like, "Hey, could you finish this?" And they're like, "This is what we do for a living." And what's happened now is, because we have so many finishers and we have projects from all over the place, if you are a long armor and you sign up to be a finisher, you're really not going to get 10 projects. You'll get one in a lifetime. The way the Masey touched on this earlier, but because we've got so many finishers, I like to think of them as like the Red Cross of crafting. They're not going to be, I used to teach CPR. I've taught 1,000 people how to do CPR. It's not a pleasant thing to do. Bones crack. People don't always make it through. I don't want anyone I know to have to do it, but I'm really happy that those people are out there to help. I don't expect any bones cracking when you sign up to be a finisher for us, although I have seen a lot of pictures of casts from people who are like, "I would love to help, but I broke my arm." Or like, "Oh, okay." I mean, Masey, how many, you've seen a bunch, right? Like
For
people
some
with
reason, there
carpal.
have been a lot of broken wrists this last year, and I don't know if
Yeah.
it's worse in the winter from
People falling
falling on the
maybe.
ice. Yeah,
Also carpal tunnels. That's the
and
other
carpal
thing.
tunnels. Yeah,
So, yeah, so we encourage people to sign up to be finishers because we need as many as we can, because we don't know if that snowflake of a project that comes in is going to be, we're going to have the right person for it. But just even raising your hand is kind of fantastic, right? You've stood up to help people, and I can't think of a nicer thing to do than to say, "Yeah, I can help. These are the things I can do." Um, and just be patient with us as we try to
yeah,
find those projects.
yeah. And one other nice thing is, while there's only one project for every 12 finishers right now, we do have a private Facebook group for where all of the registered
Sweet.
finishers are welcome. And inside this group, um, it's a place where everybody helps each other out. So Jen, Angelica, and I will sometimes have a project submitted and we can't identify the stitch, right? Sometimes we can't identify the craft. Um, Sometimes it was left without a pattern. For any number of reasons, sometimes we have to Nancy Drew projects. And the finisher group is a place where we can say, "Help, does anybody know XYZ?" And so even if a finisher isn't personally working on a project themselves, this is a place where people can still help us. They can help each other. Any finisher with a project is welcome to go in and ask a question like, "What would you do on the edging of this?" Or, "How should I, what is the construction of this? I can do it like this or this. What do you think?" It's a great place to bounce ideas off each other, ask for support. We see just the best of the internet in this little Facebook group. We really do. It's just like this life affirming, like everybody's so nice in there.
Yeah.
Everybody's so awesome. And yeah, it's just like this beautiful little jewel. And um,
One,
we have a moderator who an admin, our friend Amy, who lets people in, make sure that they're finishers. Every once in a while, there needs to be a little bit of engineering of conversations, but for the most part, everybody's really awesome.
yeah. One of the things that we've learned about the quilting and that has to do with the Facebook group is we're finding that some of these quilts, if you've ever seen those grandmother flower quilts, I think that's what they're called, the little tiny ones that you put a whole bunch of them together and they're somebody's like, nobody ever finishes those. Those are just for fun. You do them on the side. And I disagree. I think people do finish them. Um, but what we found is some of these projects are really more than one person could really reasonably do. Um, and as we've evolved over time, I mean, we are now learning more and more. Like, I know what Tunisian crochet is now, right? I didn't know that 2 years ago when I tried to match a knitter with Tunisian crochet, and they were very unhappy. And now I've got like 5 videos I can go to because my finishing group was like, boom, boom, boom. This is what this is. But with the finishing group, we now are getting to a point where we can say, all right, anybody in Tennessee who wants to work on these pieces, we have one finisher who's going to be in charge of all that, making sure that everybody has parts of it, and then we're all going to come together and meet. And we've done that at least twice now, Masey, right?
Yeah, I've had two of those myself, one with a quilt and one with a doily project. And um, it was kind of awesome because everybody met up at Joanne's. They gave one of their special crafting rooms and people got to hang out for a couple hours and actually work on it together, which doesn't usually happen. It tends to be a solitary
Yeah.
volunteer opportunity for most people, but some of these quilts that are larger, it's been kind of cool just to see people in the same room together working on stuff, or
Yeah.
then taking their bundle home and working on it and then getting back together and seeing everybody's progress. It's been really fun, kind of community
Yeah.
building.
We had one woman who had this very large embroidery thing, and about 20 of this, it was like a sampler to honor her parents' 50 years of being married, and 16 of the boxes had not been designed. And I gave it all to one person, and it was overwhelming, and it wasn't really a fair thing to do to one person. So then I found another woman and 5 other people who like to design pictures in embroidery, and they were able to make a beautiful map of what it was supposed to. And then we found another finisher to finish the whole thing. So there's been a lot of situations like that that have been really, really nice.
So the one we are fundraising for because we could really use more staff. Like we're really lean. We're 2.5 people. Um, but the perk of that is that we're really nimble, so that when it's just 2.5 of us, if one of us has a problem or an idea, um, like something like Jen just mentioned, like here's a project that could really use a creative solution. It doesn't really fit into the normal kind of process. We can say, let's try this out. And by that
Yeah,
afternoon, we're trying it out. There's I guess that's a perk to being so small and nimble and agile.
definitely.
Yeah.
What kind of positions are you looking for help in?
Oh.
We're not looking for help yet in any positions yet. We're fundraising. We have an annual fund that we're trying to work on so that we can
I'm just
fund
thinking as
positions in the
Oh, but
future.
like
But
volunteer,
project manager,
yeah, volunteer help, is that what you're,
no, I was thinking as a business is growing and
yeah,
you now have two main people and a part-time assistant, what would be your next role that you
yeah,
might are looking to fill?
yeah. So Angelica is less of an assistant and more of a project manager and
Yeah.
matchmaker. So for 20 hours a week, she is just diving into matchmaking. And in the future, hopefully near future, we'll have another 20-hour a week position to do that because there's enough work for that. There's enough
Yeah.
work for that. There just isn't. We're not able to do it yet.
Yeah. Because we have to,
That's
I mean,
probably not.
the other things that we do is all the administration of making sure that people get the word out. I talk to a lot of aging and death and dying communities. Masey talks to a lot of different guilds and things like that. We're constantly working on getting the word out, and Masey does all of our social media, which is really brings a lot of information out to the masses and helps promote our cause. And I talk to the press, and so with all that and all the matching, there's just it's enough for at least 3 full-time people, if not 4.
Is this your guys' full-time business, or do you have other things that you're doing?
This is
No,
our
I'd say
full-time job.
full-time plus. Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think has been the biggest challenge in this whole endeavor?
I I I think for me, and Macy might have a different one. The thing that I find difficult is the sheer humanness of this. It People volunteer for things for lots of different reasons. Some are like it's very altruistic, and some it's like I need this. This needs to be about me. Um, but 201 people take things and start working on them, and sometimes life happens to them, right? They break their arms, they break their hip, their husbands get sick. Lots of stuff happens to our finishers, and some people are really quick to be like, hey, I need some help. And other people, whether they get embarrassed or or they're just overwhelmed, then we have to hunt them down and be like, hey, it's okay. Like, nobody's ever going to be mad at you for raising your hand to help. It's great that you did that. What we need from you is to be communicative, and that's my biggest challenge, is just getting people to get unstuck and ask for the help that they need. Most people do, but those are the challenging ones. It's not that we can't find a cruel worker, or that we can't find somebody to do bob and lace. We've got 100 people who want to do bob and lace. We don't have a bob and lace project. Where it comes down, where the problems happen, is just when people get overwhelmed or they have their own problems, and making sure that everything that we're just keeping in communication. So I'm not scary. Macy's not scary. We just want to make sure that everybody gets their stuff back.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're happy to rematch projects if it's not, if for some reason the match isn't working, we rematch it. It's easy to do that. So yeah. I would agree. I would say making sure everyone's communicating frequently enough is probably number one. Number two is probably the amount of time that goes into fundraising which is part of it. It's part of it, and we do it. And it's just interesting because it takes away from the time we're able to spend doing the actual work. But it is all part of the work too. So
yeah, when we started this, we were doing this. This was our project on the side, but it soon took over a lot of time. So,
which is awesome. It's super fun, and it's really fulfilling and important, and it's wonderful to be able to spend our days doing this work. It is. I'm not complaining. Yeah. Sometimes when we have to chase people down to get back to us, I would say is the most harrowing. but that's not the norm. Most people do a great job communicating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we're
well,
hoping that the tech at the big hope is that when the tech gets through, some of those reminders that we have to do manually can be sent out with the tech, which is not it's not a big stretch to do it, but it will make the
Right now, where we're using Google Workspace, we're going through email for all of our communications with project owners and finishers. And a lot of times we land in people's spam, which is another thing that's just takes
yeah,
our
that
time.
the web app's not going to fix that, but there's
Yeah.
other things to fix that. But the fact that the web app will be allow us to automate some of these things that are just time sucks right now.
I'm hearing that to be more efficient, all of us business owners need to put in more automated systems.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not necessarily AI. It's just there's things you can do. There's a lot of things out there that will send automated emails and send out things. You know, if you're using MailChimp, you can work on that. If you're using Zapier, there's ways that you can set up macros to make those things happen via your spreadsheets. You just got to, you know, as a small business, you got to work smart so that you're not spending all your time doing stuff you don't like.
yeah, for sure. Well, I am super impressed with this endeavor that you have taken, and it just sounds like a great thing that blossomed out of your friendship. So kudos to you for building such a wonderful organization.
Thanks.
It's been fascinating to get a peek behind the scenes of the Loose Ends project, but we want to uh, turn to one of our fun activities that we do on the podcast and our rapid fire questions. So, Masey got to start the episode off, so we're going to throw the first question, or the first, you'll both get to answer, but we're going to let Jen answer first on a color that you struggle to use in your craft projects.
Oh, for me, it's probably brown. Brown's the worst one, just because it makes me look really like yellow, so I don't like to work with it.
And Masey?
Probably pink. Yeah. I, I don't want to say more about it. People probably love pink, but it doesn't move me.
So our next question, and I'll go ahead and ask Maisie to answer next, for first. Now this one is for quilting, so yardage or pre-cut. So I'm thinking that maybe with yarn there may be kits versus just buying yarn. So which one do you prefer?
Oh, I like to buy. I haven't to either find a pattern first and then go find the yarn for it, or sometimes buy the yarn and then try to find the pattern for it. I rarely get them both together in a thing.
Yeah, I think I'd have to say that. I Kits are interesting, but I usually do something else with the kit because I usually buy it for the yarn. Um, which is weird, but like there was a kit recently that I bought that was on super sale, and I'm making a sweater out of it. It was for a hat, but I'm making a sweater out of it, and I'm just kind of using it and some other yarn I have. I usually buy yarn just because I like the feel of it and what it looks like. And sometimes if they suggest, I'm very suggestible too. So if somebody's like, "Oh, this goes with this," I'm like, "All right, I'll buy that," and then I might forget and then use it for something else. I have a whole I lost my brain and bought like 10 skeins of something to make a shin length skirt. There's no way I'm going to make that. So it's going to end up being a sweater. But
Quilters are similar. They'll buy fabric just because they like the way it feels and the color it is.
I've been quilting lately. I've made a few quilts when I was younger, and then I just started getting into quilting and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I joined Zach Foster's Quilty Nook Do you know that? And I just finished my first throw size patchwork quilt just to kind of get back into get my skills back, you know. But it had some corduroy and it had some velvet, just patchwork, and it's gorgeous. I kind of want to go show you it, but I won't. But it's so pretty. But the textures are, I love that. I love the depth when you put kind of textured things together. Anyway.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. And this, tell us about your favorite notion that you would use. And I'm assuming you're both knitters. What tool is the most handy for your crafting life?
Oh, I just lost my favorite thing. I had this flexible needle. It was kind of like, I don't know what happened to it. And so I'll probably try and go find another one. But I was using it as a cable needle. That one I loved because anytime I needed to do something a little fiddly, or if I needed to pick up something that pick up a stitch, that was great. So that's my new favorite little thing. And then I guess just stitch holders for me, like the ones that open up. I've got like thousands of these things, just kind of like.
Oh yeah, those are in my dryer lint catch
Yeah, my friend, one of my knitting buddy friends, his husband, they went on to an Airbnb, and his husband picked up one off the floor and was like, "You're already molting. You're already leaving these all over the place." So I think that's my other favorite thing. I've got thousands of them, I think, all over my house.
Yeah. And Masey?
I would concur. I have those things everywhere in my bed, everywhere. But I will tell you my favorite little guilty pleasure. It's a little bit of a guilty pleasure because it was kind of splurgy. But Thread and Maple they actually had a fundraiser for us, and so I had to buy this. This thing is awesome. It's leather and it has snaps, and you keep everything there. Look, scissors, your tape measure, your needles, all of your little pear-shaped everything. Magnetic. Oh, I love that. It's
and it
organized.
came with a little pouch. This has more little things in it.
I didn't have a pouch.
Maybe I bought that extra.
So for those who are just listening, this is like a little project bag, and she's kind of taking it apart and letting us see what it looks like on the inside.
Yeah, they did a fundraiser for us, so we had to, of course, buy one. Like, why wouldn't
I love that thing. And then you can just grab it, and if you're going on a trip or a weekend away or something, you just throw it. You don't have to go find everything. There's, it's all in there.
I too have started to do that. And when I have a smaller thing, I'll shove it in here, which is kind of fun too. Like if I'm working on a piecework something, there's that. That's really cool too.
It's really nice.
So I think we can kind of guess the answer to the next one, but I'd love to hear you guys say it in your own words. And I'll go ahead and ask Jen to answer this one next. So what is the most rewarding part of your business?
Oh, when somebody dies and leaves something unfinished, there's a lot of times where they were the one person who could finish it in that family, and being able to. There's sometimes a lot of guilt associated with that. Mom will be like, "I'm not going to finish this blanket, but you can. You'll finish it, right?" Or the person will put it on themselves and be like, "Oh, I'll learn this skill that my mom was really good at, even though I do something else." Like my mom's a great sewer, and I'm a fairly good knitter. But to be able to take that guilt away from somebody and be like, "No, we've got people who will enjoy doing it, who are excited to do this, and they want to help bring this crafter's. We want to help tie that crafter's life up with a nice little bow." I think that's the most rewarding thing, just seeing the projects get back and seeing how the families appreciate the things and how the finisher appreciates being able to give that opportunity to somebody. I think that's my favorite.
Masey, do you have a favorite?
Did I go? So I would agree with Jen, but also one of the things about loose ends that gets me really excited is that we're making connections between people who would otherwise never know each other, and who might not have thought in a different context that they could ever be friends with each other. And connecting people through craft and through loss, loss being an experience everyone will have, right? Um, it just, it's connecting people on this very human level. And so, especially these days where there's just so much division and so many people feeling like they're so different from each other, it's been really beautiful to see so many people getting to know each other through this experience, and not seeing their differences first, but seeing this this comforting like relationship happen first.
We've had some very different people finish projects for each other, and it's been yeah, and they're on different sides of some very different issues, and they found ways to connect anyway because of the craft, which I think is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, that's a beautiful sentiment, a beautiful experience that you have facilitated. That's very touching, very, very.
I think it's going to be much needed in the upcoming year too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Something hopefully a little more lighthearted, but where are you finding inspiration these days? Person, place, experience?
Do you want me to try tackling this, Masey? I think, I'm getting a lot of inspiration from the work that we do, frankly. The fact that people are still willing to sign up. We still have 300 people a week signing up to help finish things. Just says that people are desperate to do some good in this world. And we're all here for each other. We just have to look a little bit harder than we might be. It's not us against them. It's us. We got to figure this out.
Yeah. I'm likewise, I really feel inspired every day by and very, I don't use the word blessed all the time in my day-to-day vocabulary, but I feel that way about very fortunate to be able to do this for work. It's inspiring. Like the stories are inspiring and Jen and I we do the matching. We don't do the work, we don't do the handwork, but we get to witness it. We get to see it happen. We get to read the emails back and forth. We get to see the pictures or the video at the end of these connections getting made, and being able to play a role in that happening I feel very fortunate to be able to do that. That is inspiring for sure. I have other things that are inspiring my crafting work. That's different, but yeah.
Yeah, I've been sucking down books. There's just been a lot of books in my life lately. So that's another thing to try and fill me up a little bit. But the people that we deal with on a day-to-day basis are just phenomenal. And giving, like they just give. They give their time. What do we have, like 52 hours on average of time that people have put in? Now, some people, like we give out a project and it's like they just have to it sounds like but they bind off, right? Or we had a woman who basically put together an entire Holly Hobby applique quilt that had all been cut out, but she just did the whole thing. And I think enjoyed the entire process, which is, it's kind of the fun of this, right?
We had a quilt take 900 hours by one volunteer.
Yeah. I had a piano bench just needle pointed. I don't know if you saw that yet, Masey. A full-on piano bench. And I know that when it was started, it was like just a little corner of it. And Lay's like, I'm done. I was like, oh my God, that's huge.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah.
I think that a compilation of these stories that you just have material that could be put into a book or a documentary or something, but I'm sure that's a whole nother, full-time employee's job to put that kind of.
Yeah, well,
it's a lot of work.
Yeah, for now, people just need to follow your Instagram because the stories you share there have been wonderful to see.
Yeah, Masey does a fabulous job. And our finishers are really the finishers and the project owners. We have to get permission for all those stories. So people are really excited to share the stories at the end, which is kind of nice, right? Like that's the one of the other beautiful parts about it.
Our last
we just had our
go ahead. I'd love to
I
hear
was
more
just going to
stories.
say we just had our first 15-year-old finisher. I think my first anyway. Finish or blanket.
And an 18-year-old, I think we had a college student sign up, which was that worked too. But yeah, the 15-year-old was different.
You'll see a picture of her tomorrow. Her mom gave permission. Yeah.
Excited to see that one.
Yeah.
Our last rapid fire question for you is how many, I'm going to kind of change a little bit because you guys are knitters, but Masey, if your quilt is in the room, you can count it. But how many quilts or projects are in the room with you right now?
Oh, that's kind of a mean question. Is that your quilt?
Fabric. It's fabric. That's the fabric I've been starting to collect. And then I just have my this that I'm working on. Oh, I think would just count as 3. 2 quilts and a scarf that I'm knitting.
Okay. Jen, have we given you enough time to count?
Oh God. Well, there's 7 down here. There's 4 back there. There's 1 here. There's 2 pairs of socks over there. Do I have to keep going? I'm kind of embarrassed.
I'm in my husband's office, so I don't.
Yeah, I'm in my actual. That's not fair at all. Like
right?
That's not fair. There's a lot of them.
12 plus. 12 plus.
I'm gonna say, that's generous. 12 plus. Yeah, sure.
We'll call it good with that one. So Masey, please remind our audience where they can find you online and follow you.
Yes, so looseends.org is our website for submitting a project or becoming a finisher or just learning more about us. People can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and if people sign up as finishers, they also can join the private finisher group.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And we will take all kinds of fabric finishers, like fabric, yarn, anything with a string we'll take.
Menders.
Also, if you've got anybody who has skills in databases or coding skills and they want to help us join our groovy tech team, that'd be great. Or language skills, on our website we've got flyers that you can print out. Anybody can print out a flyer and slap it up in the coffee shop nearby or the funeral parlor that they're near, or their place of worship, or their library, which is my place of worship these days. So anyone can print out one of these PDFs. And if there's a language that you're like, you don't have this in my language, we've got it in 20 languages so far, but if there's a language that you think would help somebody, we recently had a woman say, I'm in Wales, you have it in English, we all speak English, but it would probably resonate more if you had it in Welsh. And then she made the Welsh flyer. So,
That's awesome.
or if there's something that you think you could do to help us and we haven't mentioned it, let us know. info@loosendsproject.org. And we answer every single one of those emails.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing your story, and we wish you all the best. And we will definitely help get the word out because it's definitely a worthy cause. And we've learned a lot tonight. Thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting us.
So interesting to talk to a nonprofit and see that overlap with a lot of the basic stuff that they have to do that everyone in business needs to take care of. So what was your biggest takeaway, Tori?
So mine was, I love the way Jen said she's not afraid to ask. And I felt like that was really powerful for me to hear. And she said it several times that and I might be paraphrasing, but she did say like, she's not afraid to ask anybody for anything. She went and asked all the questions. If she doesn't understand, she asks more questions. It sounds like she utilized every entity that she could find to help with building this nonprofit. And again, she wasn't afraid to ask. And I find myself stopping myself from learning more from like the government agencies. Like those ones are there to help us. And I still stop myself from just asking. It's like there can't be any harm in just asking. And that was just, it was so powerful for me to hear. So I think and their overall message, of course. It was such a heartwarming conversation. And I sat there silently because I went to ask a question and then she started answering it before I even asked it. Like I had questions about what challenges did you face organizing 25,000 volunteers? And then she started talking about the app and building an app and organizing it that way. I was like, she's like reading my mind. And it was just fascinating to hear like how they scaled when they grew and how she just kept asking for help around her. And yeah, her just being able to ask for help has helped them grow in this amazing nonprofit that really helps change people's lives and helps them get closure with the projects that people have left behind. It's just amazing and it's beautiful. And I feel like a river flood because it was so much. But like there was one more and then I'll stop. But the last one, oh my gosh, talk about river flowing. I think it flowed right out of my head. Well, anyway, Andi, what were your takeaways? I'll see if it comes back to me before we're done right now. But
yeah,
Andi, what's your favorite takeaway?
More when she was talking about kind of the mission of their agencies, fulfilling this need for grieving families and the importance for us as crafters to talk about our projects. And yes, our families may hear bits and pieces and learn the terminology, but really to let them, like if you're working on a special memorial quilt or some, I'm thinking of a project that I have that ties back to my college days. And I have a specific plan for that project, but I need to make sure that I label it, put those notes in there and say, if something happens to me before I finish this one, reach out to these folks that I went to school with and use that network to finish it. Or as a long armor, if I've got customer quilts sitting somewhere, I need to make sure those are, documented, that where they go back to. Luckily, I do have tags on things for customers, but, just really making sure that your family, the people close to you, know which things have the most meaning, I guess, versus things that you're just doing because it's a fun new technique and could possibly get set aside. So yes, I've got some writing down to do so that I can keep those project notes up to date and not leave more of a mess than necessary.
And speaking of smaller projects, I love the fact that they were knitting while they were talking to us.
Yeah.
Like I saw that at H&H too. There were knitters everywhere. Like you could tell exactly who they were because they were sitting there with their projects, and it was really cool to watch. And there was also hand quilters, but it was so fun to watch knitters just pull out a little project with their yarn and just start knitting.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Knitting is a little bit more portable. It's a slower process. I've still got a knit blanket that I'm doing that's kind of a quilt type pattern, you know, but it's over a decade old practically now because it's definitely a slower project. I go through phases when I'll knit more than I quilt, but it's fun to have different projects going on. But I definitely am going to grab some of the flyers from the looseends.org website, give them to the craft stores in my area. I think giving them to churches and funeral homes would be a great resource, ways that people can support this organization, even if you can't donate money. So,
and keep in mind, it is good for marketing. So like she said, like you are supporting your customers all the way up and after passing away, and it's a powerful message, it's a powerful support. So it's not just giving back and really being able to do that heartwarming thing, but also it can be used to make connections and to meet new people and to do a little bit of that marketing. And I think that can go hand in hand in a beautiful way. And I think that was the last thing I wanted to say, was that can go like hand in hand in a beautiful way.
What a great discussion. If you enjoyed this episode of Quilting on the Side, please leave us a review on whichever platform you're listening. It can be iTunes, Spotify, or even our YouTube channel.
And hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our next chat. Until then, remember to have fun in your business and do a little quilting on the side.